Essaouira, it's true, Manuel. Spain. This isn't the gross generalisations of the tropicalisations that help early vowel and consonant sounds for learners. This is a tale of adventures in Moorish Andalucia and Morocco, and how through security your bank endangers your life, denying you what's yours. Essaouira is the real Morocco, a seaside town that is pretty in places, certainly interesting, very windy, so popular on the Atlantic coast, so very popular with kite surfers, but also paragliders and hang gliders. You could, because of the thermals, you could practice your coastal soaring all day long and probably make it to the coastal mountains. I bet they do. The Atlas Mountains are across from the Gulf of Gibraltar, from the Spanish Sierra Nevadas in Europe. A fine little slice of reality away from the tourism of Marakesh, easily accessible for an extra day or two. There'll be another little jump talking about Melilla in Morocco, which is a little Spanish enclave, very similar to how Gibraltar is a British enclave in Spain, the other side of the Straits. Flying from London to North Africa, one has a new job, teaching English as a foreign language to the children of Spanish military personnel. It's Europe, but not as we know it, Captain. You can get a boat across the continent of Africa with a car. The most cost and time effective, fly into a big Moroccan city and get local transport. I got to the border of the enclave of Melilla, and I couldn't figure out the queues at all. Possibly I was supposed to wait in queues of Moroccans going to do their daily work, like Palestinians going to Israel or Mexicans going to America. Probably very similar atmosphere, but certainly no queues of traffic, just throngs of people. I was making eye contact, carrying on walking, needing to ask, what do I do? I had my passport out in my hand and my big bag, rucksack with me. I just carried on walking, trying to make eye contact. Even at the last checkpoint before no man's land, no official gave me any attention whatsoever, so I just carried on walking. I had to get a stamp for my passport. Going from Africa to Europe, people pay small fortunes, I understand, to get inflatables, dangerous inflatables, cross oceans and channels, and hang on to trains and a carriage and hijack cars, essentially, is how it feels to the driver anyway. It's a continuous walk straight through no man's land, and my school representative met me at the other side. I didn't want to keep them waiting, queues for hours. They asked, I said. No one stopped me. I didn't get a stamp. There was the usual heavy drinking of a new band getting to know each other. Some of them got into the habit of getting weed from a child. I didn't want to have anything to do with it for that reason, and just because his eyes look like glue sniffer type eyes. It's easy to walk the huge, tall, barbed wire topped fences in an afternoon, prison-like. There isn't much of a cafe life, it's more of your own making, extending the night after you've eaten. On arrival, lively seafront, people hang out by the beach, but within weeks, the beach is like dead as anything. All the palm tree umbrellas come in, and all those flirtation opportunities with the locals just vanish after the big feria party. It's a big attraction. Funfair, food, fairground lights and music. And little raves, discos, full on party. Hyper energy level for little children for a month or so, and it's not long till it's half term, end of term, and you get breaks. Getting out without a passport stamp for coming in was no problem at all. Meet a friend in Marakesh, the order of the day, and a little trip to Essaouira. And rock the Casbah. The markets of Marakesh are mental though. Riad, the hotel, was booked. And another Riad in Essaouira. you pay after. A Riad is a typical Moroccan accommodation based around a courtyard, no real windows to the outside, only to let the ventilation in, small windows, air in, big windows, air out, water feature in the courtyard. Very stylish design in Marakesh. Lapis lazuli blue, fashion designer's little estate, was it Yves Saint Laurent? Lovely place to spend an afternoon. The gay couple's place where we stayed was down, slightly out of the main square where you all go and eat. Coming back from evening meal, all those wild, crazy, entertaining stalls along that long, fascinating, ambling walk that you hardly notice on the way there, are all boarded up, shutters, single story, flat roofs, absolutely no one anywhere in sight, and the walk just seemed so dark and threatening. No street lights, just a huge shuttered alleyway, everyone in bed, no signs of life. You are a little bit concerned for yours when you see people quick glances to each other as they're walking the other way, or at a junction. They're probably as scared of us as we are of them, or perhaps they're elbowing each other. Here comes an opportunity, just as the stall keepers do during the day. Those stall keepers, they're only allowed to haggle, negotiate, for the same range of stock that everyone seems to have, within a certain range, because the gangster landlord, big boss, they'll have them. They'll be assumed to be punished for embezzling. Our Riad courtyard never seemed so welcoming, harbouring such safety. The bus to Essaouira was civilised enough, modern enough. Walking to the accommodation, not quite so luxurious and designery, more 80s American, built for tourists to stay in, like a courtyard version of a motel, really. Travelling on light bags-wise, we did almost deliberately try to get lost. Ended up in a bit of a prime waterfront ghetto courtyard between the ramshackle seawall and the equally ramshackle vernacular local built 3- and 4-storey houses. Couldn't help but think this would be prime real estate there, on the sea wall basically, and parallel to the main bazaar, the shopping street. Along that main bazaar shopping street, you're hassled at every turn to buy the produce. You are shaded by a colonnade. The colonnade are filled with products, but you can get through a nice long street with columns, single story, shaded from the hot sun. Did get hello darling catcalling type thing from one guy that actually walked with us. All the other traders were chastising him for putting the tourists off when they were very polite, sort of hassling for sales. This young guy's slash on his face that was all healed up and everything years ago, I think it was like a gangster sign of what his face used to be his trade. You've cheated us, didn't give us our money, now it's not. I'd learnt the local phrases to how to say no very bluntly, but he wasn't deterred. It was the only time we felt concerned, really. Sat in the cafe at the end of the colonnade. I did want to chat up the paragliders and hang gliders at the next table, because I've done it before with more than a fair degree of success, and I loved it. I'm a bit of a fan. Wish I had the resources to do more. It's a fine-tuned art, soaring on thermals, and that hairline makes you feel closer to God, really. A bit like a Formula 1 racer might do when they're right on the edge. Sadly, so many of them do get very much closer to God. I'm not a believer, you know what I mean. These were clearly the elite stars of acrobatics videos, what I mean. But it was when it came to paying for the couple of nights of accommodation that it all went sour. Proper. HSBC wouldn't honour payment. They put a block on the card because it was a strange location and they thought it might have been stolen. Any manner of phone calls couldn't sort it out. They wouldn't unblock it. I'm shouting and screaming at them, which isn't going to help, you might be thinking. The accommodation owner's heard everything by now, echoing around the courtyard, and knows the difficulty. We're stranded, can't even pay for their travel out of there, or even to get our passports back. No cash, no travellers' checks. This is the modern age, don't need any of that. I was fearful for my life, really, and that of the friend. I was sort of hosting, really. She had a different bank, and a card that worked, also a card that was also refused. My guest got us out of there, and her money advance to me got me back to my home from home. Going into HSBC, it is possible, after they've said for how long and what destinations, you can not have your card blocked for any destination, anywhere, anytime. But you have to fight your corner to be able to access your money. I don't really use them, I switched. Now, I wouldn't have really needed my passport to get back into my pseudo-prison enclave, Melilla, but to get the cross-Med Straits passenger ferry back to Montreal in Andalucia, back to Europe proper, passport required. Montreal's an interesting place. Amongst a sea of polytunnel greenhouses that grow most of Europe's exotic fruits and vegetables, so they're not flown in from Israel or something. Miles upon miles squared of plastic covers the southern point of the continent of Europe. Montreal, there is a little village centre, and it isn't pleasant enough. Almost constant smell of weed, I thought, and a fair few heroin-type junkie people hanging around for such a little village. And though there's little evidence for it, a lot of illegal immigrant labour for the polytunnel industry. But I'm back in Spain. Europe, safe, dependable. No holiday mode proper, not pissed up on the beach in Union Jack shorts hustling the girls. This is a car rental doing Cadiz, Seville, Pueblos Blancos, that's the white villages up in the hills, Grazlema National Park, the only green part of southern Spain really, Granada, Valdelecrin, Marbella, and then flying out of Malaga. With the Master's Design degree in Vernacular Architecture at Oxford, we toured Pueblos Blancos villages, the white villages, up in the hills. They have a flat roof construction where all the beams are very close together with reeds between them, and then piles of thick earth and rocks. Flat rocks, not really laid like tiles, just to stop it all from blowing away. The sandy, gravelly earth just absorbs the little rainfall that they get. The best bit wasn't the teacher scratching the hire car down the narrow, twisty lanes of the villages. It was, of course, the Alhambra in Granada, the Moorish palace, but obviously that richness of space would be wonderful to try and recreate in a Riad. But I just came to love the defensive seclusion of the courtyard form, the focus, the shelter. You get away from it all. We visited one of the lecturer's own, and I just resolved to have that Moroccan house in the security of Spain and Europe. The heat and the sunshine was just the same. That was when Mrs. Cool looking each Pueblos Blancos village has such different atmosphere in such short distances. Visiting one of those magic Spanish castles up in the hill. Overzealous policemen made me feel like I could get arrested just for viewing it under the lighting that someone must have designed and paid for that very reason. Other places the youths don't necessarily seem so educated. Another seems very much like a cafe society commuter type village. And no one is physically what it looks like, any obviously preferable to the next beautiful little village. But water and a lake nearby, you quickly realise that it becomes very important. Festivals. To a non-religious person, the atmosphere at a festival, different festivals have different atmospheres, of course. I definitely got the sense in both festivals, one for the Virgin Mary and one for the, when that Jesus bloke gets crucified, that me taking photos was being disapproved of, and this was disapproval of 30-year-old plus men rather than old dears tutting or anything. Separately, especially in Ronda, it's so crowded, I felt conscious enough to keep my hands in my pocket so I didn't get pickpocketed, but I'm not sure how much of a worry that is, really. But either way, as an outsider, you do feel quite honoured to be so close to the action of these intense religious festivals. Oh, and they're so noisy. I stayed right near the church, and it was definitely to get to sleep at night afterwards. You couldn't not join in because you weren't going to be able to concentrate on anything else earlier in the night. Now, the small print, because Marbella, Spain's got a rule about declaring your income from other countries. This is to try and catch Russians out. You could get taxed on your assets in both home and away. Ransom strips of land you have to be careful of. You might be able to buy some land but not be able to get to it from the road because they're being too sharp for their own good is one thing, which is illegal in France but not in Spain. And then water is like gold. This is difficult to get your head around if you're from somewhere like England. Ronda isn't far from Marbella, of course, but you're up and down the hill. If you want to go to a bar like you recognise, the bars still are traditional, male-dominated. And even more so in the villages, especially in the evening. And the distance of Andalucia from Britain, it really doesn't suggest having double of everything. You'd fly there rather than drive you there. You'd have to keep a car, but the battery would always be flat. And how feasible is working from home? Will it stick? Access and mobility if you need any medical treatment, if you're sticking at it.